Morning, Laguna Woods. It's Friday, and I'm sure glad you tuned in today because we've been walking through the Journey with Jesus, 15 murals down at our Rancho Capistrano campus of Saddleback Church. And I gave you instructions early in the week how to get here. This is a great way to spend a morning or an afternoon. Come on down, you get a little pamphlet, and you can walk the same path that we have done over these 5 days. It's inspirational, it's beautiful, it's quiet, and I just believe God will really talk to you. Well, today this is the good news day, I call it. It's now Friday afternoon, 2,000 plus years ago, and so we're going to start with this one. We saw yesterday that Jesus died on the cross. Now it was time to bury him. So they take him off the cross. And here's what the Bible says. As the evening approached, there came a rich man from Arimathea named Joseph, who had himself become a disciple of Jesus. He asked Pilate for Jesus' body, and Pilate allowed that to happen. So Joseph took the body, wrapped it in a clean linen cloth, and placed it in his own new tomb that he had cut out of the rock. And he rolled a big stone in front of the entrance to the tomb and went away. And so what's depicted here is people who love Jesus, carrying him to his gravesite, which was a tomb cut in a rock. You know, there are those who try to say, well, maybe Jesus didn't really die. Maybe he was close to death, but then he came back to life, so to speak, in the coolness of the tomb. Friends, that is absurd. And here's why. A couple reasons. But one, the Romans were expert in death. They crucified people all the time. They knew when a person was dead, as did anyone else that was around. Jesus died. And secondly, they wrapped him in tight wound cloths. And there's no way a person could get out of those if he somehow came back to life. No, they knew Jesus was dead. And by the way, some have said, well, maybe the disciples stole the body. That's another good one, because although this doesn't depict it, the Romans put soldiers at the front of the tomb. And if that body had been stolen, their penalty was their death. There's no way they would have let that happen, number one. And secondly, as Christianity began to grow then as a group of people that were following Jesus, all they would have had to do to squash it was to come up with the body, which of course they never did. They never did. No, Jesus was buried in that tomb. He was dead. And it would be a couple days until he rose from the dead. So let's not end with him being buried in the tomb. Come on, let's go on up to the last mural. Well, here we are at the 15th of 15 murals. How fitting it is. Now, what you're seeing, it took me a moment to figure this out, but it's actually as if you were in the tomb looking out at outside, and it's on Easter Sunday morning. Jesus has risen, and in fact, Mary had come, actually two women had gone down just to pray or to be at the tomb. And when they got there, the stone was rolled away. And they look inside, and there's no Jesus. The linen cloths that he had been wrapped in were there, but no Jesus. And they didn't know what to make of it. Now, the first thing I gotta say is, If this story were being made up by the Jewish people or by the people of that time, they would have never used two women finding it, because women did not have the status that they have today. And they would have used men finding it. So it's just a small little tidbit of proof that this was not made up. So we're looking outside, and there, in fact, is Mary. And they didn't know. And all of a sudden, Jesus is standing there. But she didn't realize it was Jesus. And so the Bible says, he asked her, "Woman, why are you crying?" "Well, sir," he says, "who are you looking for?" And she thought it was the gardener. "No, sir, if you had carried him away, tell me where you put him and I'll get him." But Jesus said to her, and it was one word, and she knew then, and all he said was, "Mary." He said her name. And she started to grab onto him, and Jesus said, "Don't hold on to me, for I have not yet ascended to the Father. Go instead to my brothers and tell them, I am ascending to my Father and your Father, to my God and your God." And Mary went to the disciples, and she said, "I have seen the Lord." Wow, what news. Isn't that amazing? That indeed he was now alive again. And she was there to see it. It's just remarkable. Now, obviously, you follow the story a little bit further, and Jesus appeared to all the disciples. In fact, the Bible says he appeared to over 500 people during the next 40 days. And then he was ascended into heaven right in front of them. Those same people that he appeared to, they knew he was alive, because virtually every one of them then went on to take that good news around the world. And many of them died while doing that. And all they'd have had to do to be spared was to say, "No, we just made that up." But they knew they didn't. They knew it was true. He is risen, he is risen, is what they said to one another. And the church to this day says to themselves on Easter Sunday, "He is risen," and the response always is, "He is risen indeed." Before we shut off for today, I want to take you to one more spot that I really like, and I want to close with it. So come on, follow me down here. Watch your step. I wanted to end up here because, as you can see over my shoulder, 3 white crosses. And these crosses, just like the crosses that are around the world, are empty. They're empty because Jesus was taken down off the cross, put in the grave, raised on the 3rd day, that Easter Sunday morning. And he lives forever. And those empty crosses are a great reminder that we need to place our faith in him to have the same life that he has. And I hope you consider that this Easter season. Now, we would love, by the way, if you're ever driving down the freeway and you see the lighted crosses on the hill, that's those crosses. That's those crosses. We light those at Saddleback Church because Jesus said he is a light to the world. And that's what we wanted. We want to portray the empty cross as the light to the world. And there are probably how many hundreds of thousands of people go by every day on the 5 freeway. Next time you go by and you see those crosses, you remember what they symbolize. That Jesus himself rose from the dead on that Easter Sunday. So that's the end of the 15 mosaics that were put out here. God bless. I hope you enjoyed this week.